Welcome back to another episode of Bear Track Outfitters podcast. Today I want to talk to you about something that it was spurred on by a conversation I had today with another outfitter. We were just chatting, getting ready for the season, this and that, and we just get to talking and sharing stories and nothing too, you don't share too much about your clients or this and that, but you swap stories and we get to talking, and he told me of an incident he had with a hunter last year, and it just got me thinking to put out a video kind of along the same lines as what me and this guy talked about. So every Sunday, hunters arrive Sunday, hunt Monday to Friday, depart Saturday, you know the drill. I give an orientation, and one of the things I say in the orientation is, if you shoot your bear, don't get out of your stand. Just stay in your stand. The bear's not going anywhere. If you wounded it, well, getting out of your stand is not going to help anything. If it's dead, it's not going anywhere. Just stay in your stand. And when comes time to come get you after legal light, if you shot your bear, we'll gather all the information we need, and we'll go get your bear. Just please stay in your stand. Inevitably, what happens every week, probably 2-3 guys get out. They shoot a bear and they get out of their stand, and it's like, golly, guys. For one thing, the bush is so thick up there. I tell them I don't want to have to look for you and your bear now because you're lost. You can get turned around in a heartbeat. So what I want to do today is I'm going to share with you 2 stories. One is involving myself, and the other is involving a guide of mine. These stories are I was there, kind of after the fact-ish. It'll make sense when I say the story for my guide's experience. But both stories are they're not embellished, hand to God, true stories. So, and they just stress the fact of why I tell hunters to stay in the stand. So, first hunter, this was a number of years ago, I won't say his name, ends up shooting a beautiful bear. Beautiful bear. Boone and Crockett bear. And so I'm on my way. I drop the other 2 hunters off. I go back to camp. I'm on my way to go check something, and that particular stand, they have service. When I got into the area where I have service, because at camp we don't, this bait's about half an hour from camp, and so when I had service, I see a message, bear down. Perfect. So I pull in, unload the quad, grab my guide gun, my shotgun, grab my backpack where I'll have all my stuff in it, and drive in to the bait to go get my hunter and get his bear. I pull into the bait, and the way you pull in, the bait's here, the hunter's sitting here, and so, I turn the quad off. I'm like, so, you got one? He's like, yeah, he's archery hunter. He's like, yeah, I did, but the shot looked a little low, but it felt good, but it looked a little low. I'm like, okay, good sized bear. He's like, man, there's no question. This was a toad. Okay, so I take my backpack off. I have a roll of toilet paper I always carry with me when I'm guiding, for 2 reasons. One is the obvious one. Second one is I use it to mark trails as we're tracking blood. So if also I need to look for a line of travel, or we get turned around, or whatever, we have some sort of guidance. And the next time it rains, it dissolves it all away. So that's what I do. So I get that out. I hand it to the hunter, and what I say is that when I'm tracking the bear, stay behind me. I'll point out where there's blood, and whenever I do, you just take a little piece of toilet paper off and just hang it in a branch right where that blood is. That way, if we lose blood, we can come back to lost blood very easily and try to pick up a different direction. So I hand him the toilet paper, I put the backpack back on, I grabbed 3 slugs, load them in my gun, have the fourth one in my hand. Jokingly, I'm like, mwah, hopefully won't need it. Put it in my pocket, not knowing what's about to happen. So we start tracking this bear. He tells me, yup, he says he ran that way. I'm like, perfect. First 40, 50 yards, I mean, it was a crime scene. It was, you could have followed that blood trail with your eyes closed. It was just blood everywhere. Thinking, oh, okay, this is strange for a bear, but okay, this is I'll take it, right? Anytime you get a good track like that, I'll take it. And after about 50 yards, it did what bears typically do. Tap shuts off. Nothing. So now I'm on my hands and knees, and I'm pinching moss, and I'm like, no, that's not blood. I'm looking at like pin drops on leaves, and I hear sticks breaking of something walking about 2 o'clock for me. Sounds maybe 15, 20 yards away. Well, there's only one thing that could be. So I'm like, oh, shit. Okay, so I look back at my hunter, and his eyes are like dinner plates. He's standing there with the toilet paper in his hand. So we back out, go back to the quad, wait about an hour and a half, have some water, eat a Cliff Bar, figure, okay, this should be good. Go back in, resume the track, and I'm following, again, wet, bloody moss that that moss looks a little dark. I pinch it, sure enough, it's blood. Pin drop on a leaf here, pin drop on a stump there. It's a tough track, and we've gone probably 250 yards. And I've noticed that this bear does what bears typically. He's doubled back on us twice now. My hunter's kind of panicking because he doesn't know what's going to happen or what state this bear is in. So I'm not going to tell him that, but in my head, I'm making note of that. So we go another about 50, 60 yards, and we get to this clearing that's maybe 15 feet by 20 feet, roughly. And just as we enter that clearing, I hear the hunter go, holy shit! And he looks, and the bear, we walked, almost right, we almost brushed up against it. We walked almost right by it. And it kind of, but it's so terribly thick, and I think it was, the only reason it didn't tear us up is it was hurting pretty bad. I don't know. All I know is we got lucky. Why we got that lucky? To this day, I'm not sure. I'm just thankful we did. So anyway, it starts walking kind of away at an angle. So I kind of hunch down because everything is overgrown like this, and I kind of hunch down. I find an opening in the brush, and I see him walking, and he's laboring. I can tell he's hurting. Boom! I hit him with a slug. He hits the ground, and all I hear is, and he's popping his jaw, he's moaning, he's swatting, he's doing this and that. I'm thinking, okay, great. I have a little pump I carry, rack another one. Just as this bear shoots up and bolts straight for us. Straight for us. Without thinking, I push Hunter back. I wait till he gets an opening. Boom! Hit him with another one, and he nosedives at my feet into the dirt. Again. And he's popping his jaw. He's swatting. He's and just right, pop that jaw. And so I'm thinking, golly, quickly rock another one. Okay, in my head, I'm doing a check. Okay, he's got an arrow, 2 slugs. I'm keeping it on him, but this has got to be the end. And he's kind of laying there, and he's and he's trying to get up. I can see he's trying to get up, and he's facing right towards us at this point because when he nosedived, he kind of rolled and he's squirrely, but now he's facing us, and I can see he's trying to get up again. Thinking, golly, boom, hit him with another one. I'm like, oh shoot. So now I take that 4th one that was in my pocket I mentioned earlier, I throw it in my gun, thinking, man, I hope we don't need this. So I'm watching him, and I'm seeing him breathe, and I'm seeing air come out of the sides of him, thinking, there's no way he survives this. There's no way. So we're watching, and eventually everything just kind of stops and goes still. And I'm thinking, oh, wow. Now I'm trying to replay it in my head. My legs are now shaking. My hunter sits down. He's white. And you replay it back in your mind. What could you have done differently, right? As an outfitter and as a guide, you never want to put your hunter in a position like that. But at the same time, anyone who's hunted for an extended period of time, you know how unpredictable things can be. I've tracked thousands of bears with hunters, and that was a first for me. So bear's dead. I'm looking at this thing. I'm like, okay, now how? Now I go into how we're getting this thing out of here, right? Am I gonna have to skin this thing right here? Or, long story short, managed to get it out of there. But I'm replaying all that's in my head, and the first time I heard him when I was on my hands and knees, what was he doing? Where was he going? I thought waiting that hour and a half would be plenty, but it wasn't, right? And you look back, and I don't think there's much I could have done differently. So we get everything. Fast forward, we're at the truck. Bear's in the back of the truck, tagged. Quad's loaded up, strapped down. George looks at me, he says, I got a confession to make. I'm like, okay. He says, I got out of my stand. He says, I shot the bear. I was unsure and I wanted to make sure. I just wanted peace of mind, so I got down and I walked into the bush about 40, 50 yards. I'm thinking, golly. Like, he was a bow hunter, like I said. Imagine how that could have gone sideways, right? After everything we've just been through, he looked at me, he's like, now I know. He says, I know it sounds stupid because I got out of the stand, but he says, now I know why you tell hunters, just stay in the stand. Do not get out. Because that, again, goes without saying, that could have gone horrendously bad. So, it's, I don't tell that story. I mean, now I'm broadcasting it live here, but I don't tell that story very often. I don't tell that story in camp. Some of my guides will, hey, tell that story about the time you were tracking that bear at Tamarack. That I don't like to, even though it's real. I don't. Hunters, especially very inexperienced bear hunters, are nervous to begin with, and now you add something like that. It's fun and kind of a crazy story. And now that I'm sitting here not all jacked up, you're like, man, that was kind of cool. At the time, it sure wasn't, obviously, but sitting here today, you look back, you're like, well, that's a nice one to have in the memory bank, just crazy story. But there's no need to tell a new bear hunter or a rookie bear hunter that story, because it is a rare event, it is a rare occurrence, and I just you don't need to worry them, you don't need to get them all frazzled, and they're nervous. Like I said, they're nervous as is to begin with. So, second story. My guide was guiding a guy. Again, I won't say his name. I will say this. In the outfitting industry, you quickly realize that there are two types of people. Okay? There's hunters, and then there's killers. And there's a difference. Hunters get it. They understand it for what it is. Killers just want to pull the trigger. I don't have much time for the second group. And this guy was one of them. He'd never shot a bear in his life, which was just fine, but he came to camp wanting a 500-pound cinnamon. No, 500-pound blonde. And then I said he has just about as much chance of shooting a unicorn. And then he wanted, okay, and then he changed it to 500-pound cinnamon. To which I replied, yeah, your chances haven't changed. Are they out there in our camp? Yeah. In 18 years, I can probably count how many times I've seen on one hand a 500-pound color phase. They generally don't get that big. And even then, I'm ballparking the number. They could have been smaller, but they were big for a color phase. And so by the end of the week, he had reduced his expectations to a 500-pound bear. And he was just, the way he was talking, the questions he was asking, you could tell he was itching to pull the trigger on something. That's all he wanted to do. Because he kept talking how he wanted a trophy for his office. He wasn't taking in the experience, He wasn't trying to learn from his guide. Okay, why do you do this? Why do you do it? He was there to get a trophy to mount in his office, and that was it. Which I have very little time for, that kind of attitude. But anyway, cut to the last day of the week. He shoots at a bear. Misses. But at the time, he doesn't know. He doesn't know if he hit it or not. So the way it works was I had a hunter at a bait that was just about a couple miles past. So I drive by this one. And my guide just tells me as we're about to leave, he says, hey, tonight when we go pick up our hunters, on the way back, if I'm still there, do you want to just stop coming and help me? Sure, no problem. So I have my 400s in the truck. I'm getting to where I see his truck still parked at the entrance. So I stop, get out, and as I get out, keep in mind it's pitch black, I see quad lights coming. I'm thinking, they must have found the bear. Perfect. So I'll just wait and congratulate the hunter and take a look, and we'll go from there. Then I look at the quad lights and I'm like, man, looks like he's moving a little quick to have a hunter and a bear on the quad. Wonder what's up. So they get out onto the road where the truck is. Now, side note. Anyone who guides for me knows, or has ever worked for me in the outfitting industry knows. For me, you can, snap an axle on a quad. You can wreck a boat prop. You can roll a side-by-side. When it comes to equipment, it happens. We're out there beating the heck out of these things. They take a beat. I get it. Doesn't really bother me. Unless you're driving like an idiot. But if you're just doing your job and something happens, hey, it happens. It's not a problem. But any form of unprofessionalism, and you're going to hear about it from me. That's just the way I run things. And my guides know that. And my guides are what's the word I'm looking for? They're first class. First class, all of them. They are professional, they're knowledgeable, they love what they do, they treat the business like it's theirs. I'm blessed to have the guides that I do. That being said, I say that because of what happened next. We get up, my guide gets off the quad, he looks at the hunter, he says, so-and-so, get your shit and get in the truck. What? Did I just... So a hunter walks in, sits in the truck, closes the door. I look over at my guide, I'm like, start talking. He says, well, he shot a bear, or he says he thinks he did, and he heard him moan. I'm like, okay. Not seeing a problem here. If you hear him moan, that's a good thing. He says, I looked, and I looked, and I looked. I found scuff marks where the bear was standing and where it ran to, He says, but I didn't see any blood, nothing. He says, not a drop. And he says, I was on my hands and knees for probably 200 yards. I didn't see a single drop. But I could see the scuff marks of where it ran. Okay, so it sounds like he shot and missed. I says, but he heard a moan. Like, what? How can you hear a moan if He says, yeah, about that. So he hands me the hunter's phone. He's like, listen to, this is the moan, because he recorded it on his phone. So I take the phone, I hold it to my ear. I hear, I'm like, sounds like cubs. My guy's like, yeah. He was so eager to shoot something, he took a pot shot at the South Cubs. He claims he didn't see the Cubs, and that may be true. I don't know. I hope that's true, but the reality is he took a shot at a bear, and it turned out to have cubs. Now, so I look at my guy and says, how sure are you that he did not hit that sow? He says, I'm positive. I'm positive. And I trust my guide with my life. If he tells me he doesn't think he hit that sow, I don't think he hit that sow. Because if he hit that sow, well, now we're forming a search party and we're going to look because there's might be cubs that need rescue. You know, we're gonna have to go talk to conservation. We're gonna have to do a whole bunch. It opens a lot of doors that we now have to walk through. So I said, and I laid that out for him. Like, this is the reality of the situation. If he hit her, he says, I'm telling you, man, he didn't. He says, I don't see any sign. You can see clear as day where she was standing, where she bolted, she took off, you can the scuff marks, where she ran. He says, like I said, I was on my hands and knees for 200 yards with a headlamp and a flashlight, and I didn't see any blood. None. Nothing. Not a penny, not a drop. So after I became relieved, and because I was convinced he didn't hit the sow, I was now angry because the reality just hit me that they were looking for a potentially wounded sow. At the very least, they're looking for a pissed off sow in the dark. Come to find out, the hunter also got down from the stand and went to look for his bear. We get back to camp, and I've never spoken to a hunter like this, but I did that night. Because not only did he put himself in danger, he put my guide in danger. I told him straight up, I said, that sow could have tore your ass up and had every right to do so. You realize how lucky you are to walk out of there. And he's kind of hanging his head in that. So, all that to say, thankfully nobody was hurt. A mistake was made, but thankfully the bear wasn't hurt. The hunter and my guide wasn't hurt. Again, it's one of those things where you're sitting here today, you look back and go, oh, that was kind of interesting. But at the time, you're like, poof, that could have been so bad. So bad. It could have been a lot worse. Killing a sow with cubs is terrible. But going to look for a bear you think you shot, not knowing that it's a sow with cubs, and she tears you up, well, that's worst case scenario. So we as outfitters don't say these things just to hear ourselves talk. When I tell my hunter stay in the stand, I mean stay in the stand. And that's just not just me, it's other outfitters too. It's because it's a safety thing. We know what's out there. It serves no benefit for you to get out of the stand and go look for it. What are you going to do when you find it? At the best case scenario, you can tell me it's right by that tree. I already found it. Okay, great. You saved me 10 minutes. But what about the flip side? What if you walk up on that bear with your bow, your crossbow, your unloaded gun, or your whatever it is, and it's not dead? Now what? Or what if you encounter the many timber wolves that are in our area? The bobcat, the mountain lion, another bear. the risk far outweighs the reward. It's simply not worth it. So just stay in the stand. It blows my mind every week how many guys just ignore that advice. And you know what it is? It's not that I don't think they're being malicious. I don't. What I think it is over the years, what I've come to realize is I think it's an ignorance. And I don't mean that as a slight or to speak ill of those people. It's just, this isn't Missouri. This isn't Nebraska. This isn't Kansas. This isn't Kentucky. This isn't the Midwest. If you come to our camp, there's nothing out there but us. Nothing. Your nearest hospital, best case scenario, is 2.5, 3 hours away. Best case scenario. That's if I pick you up on time and we get out of the stand and we rush to the hospital immediately. That's best case. That's not if I'm looking for 2 bears before I come pick up you because I have a group of 3. Right? Because I don't know. I don't know if something happened to you. There's no cell service. There's nothing. So, and there's some other outfitters too that are pretty remote. And it's just, things can happen so quickly. It's just not worth it. So, I thought I'd share that with you. And just, interesting stories. And basically, the moral I'm trying to get to here is, whether it's me or another outfitter, if your outfitter tells you to do something, do it. It's that simple. They have a reason, and if you want to know the reason, ask. If you want to know why I tell hunters stay in the stand, ask me. I'll tell you why I stay in the stand. Right? If don't just brush it off and he can, grown man, he can't tell me what to do. Well, there's probably a pretty good reason he's telling you to do what it is he wants you to do. So don't guide the guide. And if your outfitter tells you to do something or not to do something, just please listen. Until next time, stay in the big woods.